as it's going to get on this 2025 season, and we're off. Lights out and away we go.
So you can really see how Vegas is trying to foster that nightclub experience as we come down pit lane. Look at the way they've lit the whole thing up. Obviously when we're under racing conditions this wouldn't fly. You're going to get bright illumination like any other sporting event. No lights on a modern Formula 1 car, similar to Lightning McQueen. But if you look over to the left, you get a chance to glimpse into the teams making their final little preps and adjustments before the race weekend. You're going to see them doing a little bit of things called pit stop practices, probably doing some engine tests. I think I can hear 1 or 2 running, and final little diagnostics before the cars go and run out there.
Absolutely, and after quali, which is obviously run under strict Parc Fermé rules, they do have that chance now, as my colleague said, to make those little changes. It could be anything from tyre pressure, engine stuff, it could be anything. They could look at pit stop strategies and all these things. But we are coming down the main straight, the starting point of this lap. Now the thing with this is it's one of the shortest runs from the grid to the first corner, and we are near or there. We've reached the braking point of this corner. Usually over a lap, the cars will be reaching around about 300 kilometers per hour as they've come through turn 17 down to turn 1. One thing to remember on this corner, key word is compromise. We've got a very early apex during this corner, and you have to compromise on your exit through here. You might be able to see the black line on the middle of the track. You probably want the car centered to that, so you can get round and hook this left wheel. The wall is your friend around this track. Hook this left wheel to get a perfect entry into turn 2.
Yes, as we look to the right hand side for entry to turn 2, look down to the inside, that red and white paint, that's curbing. Basically the name of the game for any modern driver is just connecting the dots between the corner, getting down to your apex corner, the apex curbing. It's going to be basically the geometric middle of the corner. Then as you look up to the left hand side, out to this exit wall as we merge onto the road surface, you're going to see where we've got exit curbing. It's very simple, that blue and white line is the track limits line. Obviously in the last couple of years we've seen how drivers are able to really push the rule book and try to exploit every little inch of performance they can get. Max Verstappen's really good at that, and that's why in the last couple of years the FIA's added these blue and white track limit denoting lines. They're really key in helping police these policing drivers over the weekend.
Yeah, absolutely, and we are now on the first DRS straight of this track. Due to the fact that it's a bit of it's a very low downforce setup on the cars, so the key to that is maximising the top speed, because it's a battle between long, high-speed straights and very low speed, very tyre degrading corners. So I'll take the time to talk about the tyre graining, which essentially when I say tyre graining, what I mean is the tyres do not have enough temperature in them, and the track itself, due to the nature of the corners, there's not enough lateral load across a lap to actually generate that tyre temperature. Therefore, essentially the tyres start peeling off. They start little bits of the tyre starts graining off essentially. So that's a big battle that the drivers have to deal with, and it also means that on this track they bring the most front wings to this track compared to the rest of the tracks on the calendar, but because excuse me.
So touching on the point my colleague made about setup, Vegas is a really interesting setup choice. It really pushes them into a key compromise of how they're going to choose to mechanically set these cars up. Obviously, we've got that long straight, really characteristic coming down the strip. That means that you have to run a low downforce setting. We don't want to generate any what we call aerodynamic drag, basically where a high downforce setting is going to be punching too much of a hole through the air, really affecting top speed. Or more realistically of a modern Formula 1 car, just meaning that the engine has to work that extra bit harder to push it up to top speed, enforcing something that we call derating a lot earlier. So, to compromise that, you're trying to lean more on mechanical grip, which is produced by the actual tyre, the way that it's actually making lateral load. Some fans there for us. Anyway, so as the car's making that lateral edge using mechanical grip through slow corners like this left and right hand chicane coming up, the tyre slowly overheating itself, slowly chipping away and losing more grip. This becomes a snake eating its own tail, right? Those low grip conditions make the tyre get overworked. The tyre gets overworked, it can't produce as much grip, pushes the car into more low grip conditions.
Absolutely, and we've got to remember that this corner, turn 5, is a blind braking zone, so it's all about gauging and judging where that braking zone is. Nice early apex, compromising the exit. One thing that we have seen in the previous years is this curb here. It's so easy due to the fact that there's a lot of runoff. It's so easy to ping a track limits around here, so you do have to be very careful, and you've also got to be conscious that you do not have much time to reset for this next turn, this tight left-hander. Again, the wall is your friend here, so you get in as early as possible through here, judging the curbs, not going too far over because you will bottom out over these curbs, and that can be very dangerous. It can affect your ground effect under the car, so getting nice wide exit through here, maximising your top speed towards the flat out corner coming up.
So if you guys look back, you'll see the road markings. You'll see we're back on that traditional road surface. This is that hybrid street circuit nature of the Formula One circuit here in Las Vegas. We're mixing onto public road surfaces, and that means it's a really interesting challenge for developing grip over a weekend. Typically, the way that these cars put rubber down, they're going to get grippier. The conditions are going to get better for them from start to finish over a weekend as the same compound gets laid down into the road surface. Doesn't happen here at Vegas. The roads get reopened every night. They get covered in a whole new wave of Vegas detritus, and so you were never really going to get that evolution over a weekend. That's why you saw during the qualifying session yesterday, some cars actually seemed to struggle more as the session went on. There's really no improvement that happens between the wet conditions and the traditional road surface here at Vegas.
Absolutely, and I just want to take the time to speak about McLaren quickly, because at the beginning of the weekend I did read that Andrea Stella and Lando Norris were both bracing themselves for quite a tricky weekend, but controversially the weather has actually played into their advantage, because whilst they're very good at managing their tyre temperatures at the higher end of the spectrum, we have seen here in the past 2 years that they struggle on that lower spectrum of tyre temperature. So they did actually perform, as we all saw, very well in qualifying, and that is due to the fact that we had a nice, unpredictable, controversial qualifying session in terms of weather and nature of the track, as well as Williams. So Williams were fantastic at managing oversteer during the race, because I saw one of the biggest snaps of oversteer on a Formula One car I have ever seen saved. It's miraculous how he didn't spin. It was Pierre Gasly in the Alpine on his flying lap, and he still managed to put it in the top 10, that's miraculous. If you saw it, I don't know if you did, but what a save.
So eyes up to the left-hand side now, you'll see we're transitioning onto really the most characterful part of the entire circuit, right? That run down the strip where we're getting the top speed deployed of the cars. Traditionally, you'd think, wow, it's a really long straight. The cars are probably reaching their top speeds. This isn't really one of the quicker ones on the Formula One circuit, and that's due to the corner that we're just coming out of. Think back on some of the other circuits that we've been to over the years. Baku is one great example. They've got the same traditional long, narrow street circuit straights, but much quicker corners coming onto them. Especially in this low grip setup, these low grip conditions, it's really just a balance between the drivers of how much risk do I want to take out of that corner we just exited. Do I want to come barreling in with a bunch of speed, try to get some distance, try to maybe break some DRS beam distance, or am I just going to be a little more cautious on my entry, focus on the power down, try to really get that clean, crisp delivery of throttle?
Absolutely, and out of that last corner, exit is paramount, because this is now the second DRS zone of this circuit. And one thing to remember here is, although it's not quite as long as Azerbaijan or as Shanghai, the top speed is higher due to that low downforce setup, as you said. So essentially, I'm going to predict that if you are within 4 tenths as you reach this DRS zone, you can there is a definite potential of overtaking before you get to that chicane. So if you get up the inside before you get to that chicane, if you can outbrake them into the entry, we might see that across the first lap throughout the race, because this is one of those cool circuits where, you know, there's more opportunity than just under or overcutting somebody in the pit lane. So it takes away a little bit of the pit lane strategy, which in terms of overtaking that is, but it's going to be exciting to see. I'm very excited to see this little section of the track and compromising that chicane for your entry, compromising your exit speed, to see how they can get on in overtaking.
Yeah, I think a real key thing that you'll notice, and as we come up to the left-hand part of the chicane, I'll point it out to you again, but the curbing here is not as aggressive as some of the other circuits that we've seen these cars go to. So traditionally, as you know, a Formula One car loses and comes off of its fuel load, becomes a little more wild and is able to really kind of be recovered and thrown into a bit more abrasive situations. Watch as the race evolves how that curb will slowly be used to just shortcut some track geometry, try to drag the car in, especially as the tyre starts to degrade.
Absolutely, and I just want to remind everybody that although this track was, well, debuted in 2023, this is not Formula One's first visit to Las Vegas. There was two outings in 1981 and 1982, where in 82 Nelson Piquet managed to wrap up his World Championship, and then Max Verstappen sort of repeated that last year for his fourth world title, securing the championship by just 2 points. He made it impossible at this race for anybody else. Only Lando Norris was in the title fight, but he made it impossible at this race by 2 points to even have a competition from then on out. So yeah, Vegas does have a history of crowning champions. That's 2. So a lot of tracks can't actually say that they've got that title. So it's exciting.
Yeah, we're very lucky this year, obviously, not to be crowning any champions in Vegas. We've got a brilliant battle cooking up. Piastri's got a great opportunity here for a good recovery drive. When you're chasing a championship like this, it's honestly, these are when you have to kind of make or break decisions, and he's got to make some really big risks over the next couple, hours, really, if he wants to keep his championship hopes alive. Vegas has a great opportunity for McLaren. I think the car's really well suited. When you looked in qualifying, Lando was a second clear by sector 2. So I think in the dry, that's going to point to them being pretty hard to combat. If he's able to clear the inevitable bottleneck Max Verstappen's going to make, and if Oscar's lucky, Lando will be stuck behind that too, then he's got a pretty great shot. But man, he's got a very big mountain to climb, I'd say, for his championship hopes to keep going here in Las Vegas.
100%, but let's say, for instance, it's a wet race. That's a different story, because I think that's when, if it is a dry race, then I do think that we'll see George Russell come through quite well, because bold, optimistic, going off the precedent set last year by him, and actually he looked okay at the beginning of quali, and he's looked great during the practice sessions. I just think if they do make the correct changes, I do think the Mercedes is very well suited to this track.
He had a great opportunity going into Q3. Obviously, that power steering failure was a big bummer for him. If we look to the inside where our great volunteers are standing, that curving is exactly what I'm talking about. Look how dark it's become already. That means it's getting used. That means that the cars are barreling across it, putting the rubber down, using it as part of their track evolution as we come through this tight left-right chicane. Saw just how slick this whole section was as it came through yesterday. Again, it's a regular road. As you look back, you can see those road markings. As every night goes through, regular traffic gets back on. It just means that there's no rubber getting a good chance to lay down. Even in the wet conditions, those Pirellis are able to build some form of racing line. But even when we looked at the way they approached the wet sessions, drove it just like a dry session. There was no racing line to worry about.
Yes, and as we bellow down towards turn 17, you will find that if it is a wet session, there's actually a little bit of a crest before you go over turn 17. So what that means is when the dry line actually starts to appear after a few laps of wet, then you're going into the corner on a dry line, but the water's running down the track, and essentially, if you're on intermediate tyres or move onto your slicks, you're essentially going to be going into a little bit of a puddle, and that can just be so disruptive to the car's aerodynamics and grip over a lap. So it'd be very interesting to see how the drivers can wrestle and hustle the car to ensure that they don't have, I mean, we've seen quite a couple of accidents here on this last corner over the weekend. So it's going to be interesting to see how they decide to battle through this final corner.
So we're making our approach back now to pit lane entry. If you look to the left-hand side, that blue and white line, that's that pit lane limit line. Really, really key. We've seen it be responsible for lots of penalties over the years. You've got to think, over the endurance race that an F1 event really is, these drivers are so mentally taxed. Sometimes it might seem, you know, kind of ridiculous that, you know, an athlete at that level is making such a crucial little mistake, but it's just so simple when these drivers are being so overworked. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us. We hope